Thank you, Dina. It's good to be here. And I hope you all had a good break and had some caffeine in your bloodstream for this last session. So my name is Erika. I'm from MedUniverse. And we help pharmaceutical and medtech companies to educate and inform about their medicines to healthcare professionals. And I'm going to talk about adoption of innovation. I believe that partnerships is a great way to adopt innovation quickly. And I will do this as a business case, so it will be tangible and not so abstract. And before we dive into that, I think I want to share with you what we do on a more detailed level. And we will watch a short video that explains what we do at MedUniverse.
The pharmaceutical companies have a responsibility to educate and inform about new treatments and therapies. To make well-informed decisions and improve patient outcomes, healthcare professionals depend on new and updated medical information. Therefore, the industry and the healthcare professionals rely on each other to evolve. Unfortunately, the exchange of information is complex and slow and occurs mostly by analog means, making it hard to measure and evaluate the interaction. Patient case studies are a well-known learning concept within the life science industry. Most medical doctors thoroughly enjoy patient cases. They are challenging and fun, in the long run supporting improved clinical practice. So to bridge the gap between the HCPs and the pharmaceutical industry, MedUniverse offers a tailor-made interactive patient case software, making this process digital, more efficient, and relevant. The interactive patient cases motivate medical doctors to engage in clinical scenarios with instant feedback and peer results. For the pharmaceutical companies, patient cases can easily be uploaded in the tool and used in many different settings. Aggregated data on how HCPs reason around the patient journey is collected, enabling further analysis and improved business decisions. MedUniverse, the interactive patient case web service.
Yeah, so we have taken an old learning concept and digitalized it. And we offer this to an industry which is not 100% digital at the moment. So it's a patient case software, which we offer as a software as a service on a subscription basis. And by doing this, you can educate and inform about new treatments and new therapies in a way that is patient-centric, because it has to do with patient cases. It's also something that's clinically relevant, because the cases are a simulation of the clinician's everyday life. And it's also a tool that leverages the fact that we live in a digital age and that we're looking to digital channels for information. So to explain how you can do this, I have taken an example from our collaboration with Takeda. So let's go to the next slide. Takeda is the largest pharmaceutical company in Asia and Japan, and one of the top 15 in the world. And they were launching a new medicine. And usually what you do in this industry is you use print material and bring them to the clinicians. And they were looking for something else than that. So we can go to the next slide. They wanted to engage the healthcare professionals more than that, and they wanted responsiveness from their audience. They also wanted to make sure that their clinical knowledge was displayed in the correct manner, and the messages really got through. And they also wanted a tool that could work in multi-channels, so in multiple channels, and that collected data. So we started our collaboration, and they became clients, and they got their own login to our platform, where they, together with experts, created cases. We can go to the next slide. So they created the cases, and then we distributed them both online, so on web pages and in emailings, but also in clinic meetings. And by now, I think you want to know, how does these cases look like? So let's take a look at a demo that we did together. So this is a case of a 49-year-old woman. A patient case is basically a story about the patient, and then it's coupled to questions about how you as a clinician would handle this patient. So we see this 49-year-old woman, and we learn what she's suffering from. We can see who created the case. And then as a healthcare professional, I answer which profession I'm in, and I get to choose. I choose doctor in specialty training. And then I start the case. And it's built up step by step, where you get a little piece of information about this patient, and then answer questions about how you would handle in such a scenario. So in this case, we get information in form of text and video. You could also use pictures and audio files, depending on what therapeutic area you're in. And based on this information, I'm asked, what would I do? On these results, how would I handle the patient? So I choose A, and I confirm. And right away I see, oh, that was not the correct answer according to the case creator. I should have chosen B. And then I also can learn, or I read, and I can see why this was wrong. So it's very important that you build up the clinical reasoning around this. I also see how others have answered. So in this case, now this is a demo and demo data, but maybe I get a little bit relieved that I was not the only one who answered incorrectly on this question. So this is how MedUniverse looks, and how the HCPs interact with it. And going back to our objectives of this collaboration, we can take the next slide. First of all, we wanted engagement and responsiveness. Yeah, so the whole structure is supporting the engagement and responsiveness, but we also wanted to check this. So at the end of the case, we asked a couple of non-clinical questions, or evaluation questions. So we can go next, please. And we asked, was the case interesting with motivating considerations? So the specialist and the nurses, they really thought this was an interesting case, so we could really tick off that first objective, that yes, they were really engaged in this. And we also wanted to know, okay, has the clinical message come across correctly? And therefore we asked, how did you perceive the scientific level of the case? And that was also really high. If you're a pharma company and working online with online communication to healthcare professionals, this is really good results. And we also asked how if they could use this information in their clinical work. And also here we got really positive results, so that gave us the confidence to say that, yeah, we also reached the second objective of this collaboration, to convey the clinical information. And then it was the multi-channel and data collection. As I mentioned before, we are using these cases online, so they have been distributed in emailings. We can go to the next slide, please. We also have an online platform or a website where they're accessible for healthcare professionals. And then we're going to use them in conference settings like this, and also in clinic meetings around Sweden. So we could really leverage the content that we're producing in several channels. And then the data. Well, on the MedUniverse platform, we collect data automatically on an aggregated level. So we can take the next slide. So we collect data about the respondents, we see, just like you saw how others have answered, we see how the group has answered each question. And we also can see the activity over time. And since we're collecting information about the answers, but also about the respondents, we can then filter the data and compare different groups. So for example, you can compare nurses to the specialists and see if there are any differences in how they would have handled the patient. So this makes it possible for our partners to get measurability in their educational and marketing initiatives. It's also possible for them to identify knowledge gaps and understand how they could communicate even more efficiently in the future. And then it's a way to evaluate different channels. So you can see what online channels are working and which are not. So we can take the next slide. In this collaboration, we were really successful. It was a win-win, both for us, also for our client, Takeda, and for the healthcare practitioners who thought there was an interesting and fun way to engage. And I think also for the patients, because in the end, they will have an updated care since the clinicians are provided the new information in a good and relevant format. Next slide, please. So with this, I want to say that in this networked society, I think it's a good idea to work together, to focus on what you are best at, and then find partners who complement you. And for the large companies out there, to make it easy to work with you, that's a real innovation. That is very important to be able to build partnerships with small players like us. And that's when you can really create win-win collaborations. Thank you.
So thank you, Erika, for this detailed walkthrough of your technology. And what I was wondering while I was listening to your presentation, from your experience, how much this innovation partnership climate has changed and so-called big pharma changed attitude towards companies like yours?
It's very different. It depends. It's different from company to company. Some they have a really pronounced digital strategy, and others they haven't had that yet. I think it must come from the top. It must come from the executive teams to say we are going to work digitally. Nowadays, it's 60 to 90% of the marketing and educational material within the life science industry towards healthcare professional. That is print material, yeah, there is still some stuff to do.
Is there a positive trend or not yet when it comes to accepting these partnerships between medtech companies like yours and big pharma? Well, is it some positive we can hope for? Yeah,
well, these are very large corporations, and you know, I'm dealing with a lot of different functions within these companies. So from everything from the digital team to the compliance and legal departments, and it's very different depending on what function you're working with, how open they are.
And how fast they move.
And how fast they move, definitely.
If anyone else have questions for Erika, please talk to her after the session. And I'm sure we have some questions from the cage.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I want to address was you talked about doing your own data analysis.
Yeah.
Is your company, and we're seeing that a lot with companies these days, are you the only one that does your data analysis? And if so, do you think you should be? I'm doing a PhD, and I'm very curious why more academics aren't getting involved or doctors getting involved with analyzing medical data as opposed to companies.
So the data that we collect is displayed on your admin account at MedUniverse. So as an admin user, it's very easy to understand or analyze that data, because it's displayed in dashboards. Or did I get your question correctly?
No. I was saying, because you said you were doing data analysis on all of the responses. And my question is, do you think companies should be doing their own data analysis on medical data?
So these are fictitious cases, so it's more about understanding how your target audiences are reasoning around treatment, which is a big difference from having actual medical data. And we're working with the commercial teams at the life science companies, and yes, I think they should. I think they should do this. I mean, when we sit down with their teams, I can see that there is a lot happening in their heads when they get black on white on what's going out in the clinic. So they're getting a lot of good insights and intelligence out of that.
To go a little bit further on Elizabeth's questions, when I'm looking at it from the patient point of view, I do have my concerns sometimes when it comes to companies that have a for-profit approach, analyzing data that I'm putting into the system. How are you dealing with the ethical questions that are arising about data acquisition and data management of companies that are involved with medical data?
Yeah, so we have decided to collect the data on an aggregated level and not on an individual level. So we're not collecting any personal or private data.
So that also leaves out the possibility of it's being traced back, of course, then?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
No, I think the bigger thing that we were talking about and what we're seeing a lot right now is that while you're not infringing on privacy, you're also not contributing to science. You're keeping it to yourself. So that's more of what I'm hoping changes in the future, and what I'm hoping to do in my future work after my PhD is really getting academic research and practical application together, and not just keeping it for ourselves.
Yeah, I think it also is very important that was something that we touched on last conference in 2015, was it Digital Health Days 2015? When you're looking at the development of products, the analytics of data, and what kind of questions arise during the setup of companies and the setup of these data analysis tools, is do you always have to comply with everything in order to reach innovation? Because sometimes innovation needs to be disruptive. So sometimes you need to get out of that comfort zone and just break the law, and not actually breaking the law, but just go outside of the comfort zone of healthcare. So yeah, I definitely agree with Elizabeth on that, and especially when you're looking at the academic field, the academic field relies a lot on raw data that sometimes also has to be referred back to the patient. So I think it is something to think about, setting up a company and how deep you want to go in your data analysis.
I think it's actually a great discussion that you should continue afterwards.
We will.
And we're going to listen to the webcast here on the screen. So please, Erika, don't go far away, because we really would like to welcome you for interviews afterwards. And with this, just great applause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.